everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. In this book of backgrounds video, we're going to be working on the back side of this one. And I'm going to show you how to create a distressed page, very simple page. Okay, there's nothing overly fancy about it. And what you're going to look at is getting something like this. And you can do this technique on 10 different pages and you're going to get 10 different results. So don't expect perfection with every single piece. We basically start off with something like this and then we use sandpaper to get something like this. And I love the finish to this. We're going to be using today the Americana Decor Chalky finish paints. They come in small 2-ounce bottles. I use this so often to use the big containers. And I'm going to be using Relic and Whisper for the contrasting colors. The first thing I'm going to do is give this a stir. Get the popsicle sticks. Give this a stir. And I'm going to then apply a layer to this. Now this particular layer here doesn't have to be perfect coverage. And this is not the traditional way that you would apply it. I'm just cleaning my popsicle stick. You don't want perfect coverage because you're going to be putting another layer of paint on top. I'm just making my brush a little bit damp and I'm going to spread this over. With this paint, it's better to apply multiple thin layers than a heavy layer. And I'm just going to work this. Any contrasting color will work. My brush is a little bit too wet for this, but that's fine. And I do have something on the back, and I'll just take this off. Something on the back, and although it doesn't really matter to me if paint gets on the other side, if you had something important on your other page, then put a piece of low-tack masking tape on the other side or on the edges to protect, and then you can even tape a piece of wax paper to it. If you're working on an actual bound journal, then just put a piece of wax paper in between. And I love the finish of the chalky paints, but this technique will work with really any color. I just don't know if you're going to get the same effect. Or any, sorry, not any color, any brand. I don't know if you're going to get the same effect. And as this starts drying, it goes to a real matte finish. And I know this is like watching paint dry, but if you're new to the technique, I don't want to speed up anything. I want to do this in real time. You can see as it starts to dry, it is quite dark. Now I'm just going to give this a light finish. And this can also be you can, it's 5 a.m. right now. You can speed up the drying time with this as well. Let's cover that up. And I have a little bit here. So I'm going to put on the heat gun just so you can see. Now watch the shine disappear. Okay, so you can see how nice and matte that is. So if you have the time, it's always nice to let this stuff dry naturally. I'm just going to this page was curled. And it's always nice to have it dry naturally, and which is what I'm going to do while I prepare for the next step. So any dark color, and then get a nice contrasting color. And this is kind of a creamy color. You'll need another large brush, and whether, you know, you'll still need your heat gun or let it air dry, and then we're going to need some sandpaper. I just wanted to jump in here a little bit before this finished drying. See this dark patch in here? That's where the paint was really thick. I didn't apply it even enough. So although this feels dry, this is not dry. So I need to wait until this dries. And if I touch the sides, on the other side, this feels like it's room temperature. When I put my hand in the middle, it feels cold. So it's still, that's just one way to tell if something's completely dry. It's cold. Okay, so I'm gonna let this sit. So I just wanted to show you this before it finished drying. I want to do another layer of paint, and just to see what the contrast would be like. I just did this one with the Relic and Whisper, but what happens if we add another color? So I'm going to use this one here, and this one is called Legacy. And I'm going to put it right in here. I want to see what happens when you introduce two colors. And we'll just put a little bit here. That's it. That was hard. All right, so that's going to dry. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that the drying time is absolutely critical for this. So with this particular stage, you do want to let the layers dry. For the next stage, when we apply the Whisper, that has to be more than 100% dry, because when we put the sandpaper on there, see, blue everywhere. When we put the sandpaper to it, if it's not dry, it's just going to pull up all the paint. What I like to recommend is if there is something that you need to work with that the drying time is critical, do it the night before, and that way you just let something sit overnight to dry. That's the surefire way to make sure that your piece will be dry. And you can see that's already starting to turn into a matte finish because it's drying. Okay, so this technique is super simple, but the effect is really, really cool. Isn't that beautiful? That is for a background just as is. I would actually, if I wasn't doing this for a video lesson, I would leave that and keep it for something else. I love the way that dried. Completely different when it was applied. So I'm going to grab some. So this is Whisper. And I'm going to be using a small brush for this one. And I'm just going to apply, that's why I'm using a small brush. I'm going to apply a light layer, but I'd like to say opaque, but not really opaque, but a thin. And if I have to do a second layer, that's fine, but it's going to be thin. Oh, if it covers that, I don't care. I also didn't dampen my brush first. I don't want any water in this. And when it comes to the sanding part, one thing to keep in mind, if you're sanding over something that's been decoupaged, you make sure that decoupage piece is sealed. This also picks up all the texture. Look at all that texture. And I'm very tempted to do this in real time, but no, I'm gonna do this. Sorry, I speeded up. I'm so tempted to speed this up because this can be quite boring. But I'm going to do it in real time. And if you're more advanced, you can skip ahead. I just don't want any beginners to be left, wondering. Because if I make a mistake, I want people to see how I fix it. You can see as I'm putting it on, I'm moving around and it's retaining the shape. So if I see how you got that brush edge here, if I come back, and now the transparency is different as I'm moving around. You can sponge this on, you can do it any way you want. I wanted this to be more like barn board, like a barn board style. That's a bit thick, so I'm going to really spread that out. And as I'm working around, the second layer of paint is only on areas that have been dried. And you need to get enough contrast in there because when you sand it, the color underneath is what's going to show. If you don't have enough paint on there, you're not going to have much contrast. It is so quiet this early in the morning. Who needs yoga when you can do this? What a way to stretch your muscles. There we go. So I'm going to continue on, and although I'm going to do this in real time, I'll pop some music in the background. So it's not so dead quiet. So this has had plenty of time to dry. Now I want to give you a bit of a health and safety warning. I'm using the Decor line of paints, and the chalky finish is non-toxic. If you are working with a line of paint, doesn't matter the brand, and let's say you're working with, cadmium colors, true cadmium colors, this next step that we're doing is going to be dangerous if you're using true cadmium colors. The reason being, we're going to be doing some sanding, and the particles from the sanding will become airborne. So read the label on any paint product, any product you use before doing any type of sanding. And even when using this, I'm going to be using very shallow breaths so I don't blow the air particles out. It's going to be hard because I'm talking. If you have allergies, you can go to the big box stores to get masks, filter masks, not the cheap dollar store stuff, the ones that have the filters in them, and that'll help prevent the particle for you inhaling the particles. So again, always read the labels on products before you start doing any type of sanding. Okay. So I've got some, I stole this from Joe's workshop, 120 grit sandpaper. This one here is used, okay, because I don't want anything brand new, and just a piece of wood. You can get blocks at the store, you know, actual sanding blocks. Don't waste your money on that. It's not necessary. And all I'm going to do is start sanding. And this is the part where if your piece is not dry, you're going to get bubbles coming up. Do this slowly. It's starting to come up. Now, if you were to use your sandpaper like this, you're going to get more streaks and not more of an even coat. So it's completely up to you how you want to do the distressing. So watch here. Okay, see? And the texture started to come out. Oh, that's beautiful. And now I want to go in one direction. Okay, watch here. I'm going to switch up to something a little bit rougher. So this one's a little bit rougher. And only because I did the extra layers of paint there. But start off slow. Oh, the other thing, you shouldn't be doing this on a no-stick mat, because if you get this on a no-stick mat, you're actually going to damage it. There we go. See, it's starting to come out. Now, what's also happening is that because there's many ridges, when we were painting and the ridges, that's what all this is. Hopefully the camera's not shaking too much. This is a very simple technique, but you need a lot of elbow grease. See how it's starting to come up? So if you don't want these lines, if you want a more flat finish, just make sure you smooth everything out. Because there's something on the back here, this is also affecting how the sanding is taking place. Because there's decoupage on here and a big air bubble where I missed putting the decoupage medium, it is affecting how the sanding is taking place. Don't be tempted to go to sandpaper that's too rough though at the beginning. If you find you're not making any headway with the fine, then go to something a little bit rougher. I'm going to go this way on here, so I want to get the edge. Oops. Yes, I could have got a piece of cardboard. And I would have had to stop the video. And you would basically do this until you got the effect that you want. And in thinking now, what I should have done is only applied the paint in one direction. I shouldn't have did all the swirls, but in saying that, it's just a background. Let's see if I can do this piece here. There we go. Never blow sandpaper particles. There we are. And I'm going to get a damp cloth. Put that away, put that away. And this here will go straight into the blue bin. There's an antique store down the street. Actually, it's a consignment shop, but they have a lot of antiques there. Wood with this type of finish. I wouldn't say it's pricey. Dollar-wise, it's on the high end. But for what it is, it's a good buy. But now you know how you can easily do this yourself. Okay, so there you go. So you've got some with texture, some without. So if I were to do this little piece here, might as well do this while I have it. So this was done the exact same technique, except I didn't use the blue, and I use a much finer stroke for this. I'm going to go with the small piece of sandpaper. And let me get a piece of cardboard. And this is just the backing off a pad of drawing paper. This is just a piece of ugly scrapbook paper. So this is just another way that you can upcycle something. Whoops, except it bends. It's a little bit thin for what I'm doing. Really want to get those edges. And you'd be going a lot slower than I am. Really getting that edge. Okay, so note to self, when doing this, maybe mount this onto another piece of, if you're using the scrapbook paper, the leftover bits or whatever, maybe mount it on another piece of cardstock. Or gesso it first to stiffen it up, but there you go. And I can keep working this. But look at the fiber, the particles. So you don't want to blow that. Do not blow on any, same thing when I'm teaching my graphite drawing lessons. Do not, under any circumstances, blow particles into the air. Although it's non-toxic, you don't want to be inhaling that stuff. So if I'm doing a lot of sanding, and it drives me crazy because I wear glasses, is I'll wear that filter mask, and that way I'm protected. Just make sure you read the labels on everything. So there you go, you guys. So I hope that I'm exhausted now. Physical work, but I hope you got some ideas of what you can do with simple layers of paint and a little bit of sandpaper. Sandpaper is not expensive stuff. You can get this stuff at the dollar store. Just feel it. You want something that's fine and you want something that's a little bit rougher. So my note to self is that next time I were to do this, next time I do this again, I could use it as an experiment to try the triple layers on a piece of plain stock that doesn't have anything else on it, no collage, nothing. And then on that experiment is to try with the multiple directions of the brush stroke and just the straight to see if if that still happens. But you can see where the paper was folded over. I've got some nice distressing here. Okay, nice. And when you wipe it down with a wet cloth, you have to let it dry before you go on again. And if you're doing this on a collaged piece, make sure you seal this really, really well. Otherwise, you'll start ripping up the paper. So now that that's cooled off, I'm going to seal it with a soft touch varnish. And I have a brush specifically for varnishing. And with varnish, you want to stir it with a stick beforehand. You don't want to shake the container. And although this is just a background, I do want to protect that. It'll also give it a little bit more strength. So you don't have to do this stage, but I have an idea what I'm going to be doing with this project. And this is just like a barrier layer. You can use matte medium if you want. Decoupage medium, anything to add as a barrier layer. There you go. And I'm also going to do those little pieces as well. Just feathering that out. There you go. That's going to go on my drying rack. And although these are little tiny pieces, I still want to protect them. Again, you can use matte medium if you want. This is the varnish made specifically for this line. It's not super glossy, and it's not tacky. So I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I would love to see pictures of creations that you do based on my designs, or any of the designs actually. So feel free to email them to me, or better yet, post them in our private Facebook group. It's a free group made up of artists of all levels, and the link to both of those are on my website at artplace.ca. So I'm going to let this dry and then put it with the other backgrounds. And I'm now going to clean up and get ready to teach a live online class. It's called Demystifying Your Art Tools. So I'm going to get it ready for that. So until I see you in the next Book of Backgrounds design, which I'm thinking is going to involve a map, arrows, and modeling paste. Think about that for a sec. So until then, stay inspired.